The Enigma of the Forest Lights. "Did you see that?" whispered Sarah, her voice trembling as she pointed toward the darkness. A faint, unearthly glow flickered among the trees, moving as if it had a will of its own. It had started as a casual camping trip for Sarah and her friends, just a group of college students eager to escape the grind of daily life. But by the second night, the remote forest they had chosen began to reveal its secrets. Secrets that had long been buried in the whispered tales of locals. The glowing lights were the first sign, shimmering faintly through the dense undergrowth, drawing the group deeper into the woods. What began as curiosity quickly turned into unease. The lights seemed to beckon, moving gracefully but deliberately, always staying just out of reach. For centuries, the forest had been known for its strange occurrences. Locals spoke of the wandering lights, orbs of illumination that appeared without warning, glowing in shades of blue, green, and gold. Those who followed them often found themselves lost, disoriented, or worse than ever, seen again. The first encounter. The group's first sighting came after dinner, as they gathered around the campfire. Laughter filled the air, and the scent of roasted marshmallows mingled with the crisp night breeze. Then, a soft glow emerged from the tree line. At first they thought it was a distant flashlight, perhaps another group of campers. But as they watched, the light changed. It shifted in color, from gold to blue, then green, pulsating gently. "Maybe it's fireflies," David suggested, though his voice lacked conviction. "It's not fireflies," Sarah replied, her eyes locked on the light. "Look how it moves. It's too big and deliberate." Intrigued, they decided to investigate. Armed with flashlights and a mix of excitement and apprehension, they ventured into the wood. The glow seemed to retreat as they approached, slipping deeper into the forest. The further they went, the more surreal their surroundings became. The usual sounds of the forest, chirping crickets, rustling leaves, seemed to fade, replaced by an uncanny silence. The group stopped when they reached a clearing. The light hovered in the center, no longer retreating but waiting. It was larger now, its glow illuminating the area with an otherworldly Then, as suddenly as it appeared, the light flickered and vanished, leaving the group in darkness. A growing mystery. Back at the campsite, unease hung heavy in the air. Though they tried to brush off the experience as a trick of light or their imaginations, the group couldn't shake the feeling that they had witnessed something extraordinary. The next day, they explored the area, hoping to find a logical explanation. What they discovered only deepened the mystery. They found strange symbols carved into the bark of several tree circles, spirals, and geometric shapes that didn't seem natural. Nearby, they stumbled upon an old moss-covered stone slab, its surface etched with similar marking. "Do you think this has something to do with the lights?" asked Lily, the group's skeptic. "Maybe," Sarah replied. "Or maybe the stories are..." The stories she referred to were those of the forest's haunted past. Centuries earlier, the land had been home to an indigenous tribe, known for its deep spiritual connection to nature. According to legend, the tribe revered the lights as protectors, spirits that guarded the forest from intruders. When settlers arrived and disrupted the land, the tribe vanished, leaving behind only whispers and the enigmatic light. Night 2. A dangerous game. As dusk fell on their second night, the group prepared for another encounter. They had no intention of following the lights again, but hoped to observe them from the safety of their camps. Just as before, the lights appeared, this time closer and more numerous. They hovered at the edge of the clearing, their pulsating glow casting eerie shadows on the surrounding trees. Sarah felt a mix of awe and dread as she watched. Then, something changed. The lights began to move erratically, darting back and forth as if agitated. The air grew colder, and an unexplainable pressure seemed to settle over the camp. The fire flickered and sputtered, and an unnatural stillness enveloped the... "Maybe we should head back to the car," David suggested, his voice shaking. Before they could respond, one of the lights shot forward, stopping just a few feet from where they stood. It hovered for a moment, then began to circle them slowly. The group froze, unsure whether to run or stay. "Is it watching us?" Lily asked. "I don't know," Sarah replied, her voice barely audible. Suddenly, the light disappeared, leaving them in total darkness. Panic set in as the group scrambled for their flashlights, only to discover that none of them would turn. They huddled together, listening to the oppressive silence, until a faint whisper broke through. At first, it was indistinct, like the rustle of leaves. But as it grew louder, they realized it was a childlike voice, speaking in a language none of them recognized. A brush with the unknown. The group didn't wait to hear more. Grabbing what they could, they fled the campsite, stumbling through the dark forest toward their car. When they finally reached it, they discovered deep scratches on the vehicle's hood, as though something with claws had raked across. As they drove back to town, the lights appeared once more, this time in their rearview mirror. They followed the car for several miles before vanishing completely. The group vowed never to return to the forest, but the experience left them with more questions than answers. Who or what were the lights, and why had they been targeted? A community of stories. When Sarah and her friends returned to town, their story quickly spread. They weren't the first to experience the forest lights, but their tale of the strange whispers, the damaged car, and the oppressive energy added a new layer of intrigue. Locals, long accustomed to dismissing the lights as harmless folklore, began sharing their own encounter. One elderly woman, Mrs. Carter, described seeing the lights as a child while playing near the forest. They weren't scary at first, she said. I thought they were fireflies, but they moved too fast, too purposefully. My grandmother used to say they were the spirits of the forest, watching over us. But when people disrespect the land, the lights turn angry. And other accounts painted a more sinister picture. A hunter named Greg claims that after seeing the lights, he was plagued by vivid nightmares of being lost in the woods, chased by shadowy figures. I could feel them breathing behind me, he said. His voice When I woke up, I had scratches on my arms, like I'd been running through brambles, but there were no brambles in my bed. A reckless expedition. Determined to uncover the truth, a group of amateur paranormal investigators contacted Sarah's group, asking for guidance to the exact location. Against their better judgment, Sarah and David agreed to accompany them. We need answers, David said. If these lights are real, someone has to find out what they are. The team consisted of 5 members, each equipped with infrared cameras, EMF detectors, and audio recorders. They arrived at the forest in the late afternoon, determined to document every moment of their exploration. As the sun set, the investigators set up their base near the campsite Sarah and her friends had abandoned. Almost immediately, the equipment began picking up anomalies. EMF detectors spiked inexplicably, and the audio recorders captured faint, rhythmic tapping sound. At dusk, the lights returned. This time, they were more numerous than before, appearing in clusters that hovered just beyond the tree line. The investigators eagerly began filming, their cameras capturing the lights' vibrant colors and erratic movements. But as they ventured closer, the mood shifted. The forests warmed. The lights, once calm and mesmerizing, became chaotic. They darted through the trees at impossible speeds, circling the group like predators. The air grew colder, and an unnatural wind rustled through the forest, though the surrounding leaves remained still. One investigator, Mark, ventured too close. As he stepped into the clearing where the lights were most concentrated, a deafening crack echoed through the forest. He screamed and stumbled backward, clutching his shoulder. When the others reached him, they found long, thin scratches on his arm, as though from invisible claws. This isn't normal, Sarah whispered. We need to leave now. But the team leader, Jake, insisted on pressing forward. We're here to uncover the truth, he argued. We can't leave empty-handed. Ignoring Sarah's protests, the group moved deeper into the forest, following the light. They soon discovered something that froze them in their tracks, an ancient stone circle, partially hidden by moss and undergrowth. The stones were etched with the same symbols Sarah had seen earlier: circles, spirals, and geometric shapes. The center of the mystery. As they approached the stone circle, the lights began to cluster around it, their glow illuminating the carvings in eerie detail. Jake placed an EMF detector in the center of the circle, and it immediately spiked, emitting a loud, continuous. Suddenly, the whispers began again. This time, they were louder and more distinct. The voice was still childlike, but carried an edge of urgency. The investigators froze, unsure whether to run or stop. What is it saying? David asked, his voice barely audible. Jake shook his head. I don't know, but it doesn't want us. The ground beneath their feet began to vibrate, and a low hum filled the air. The lights grew brighter, swirling faster and faster until they formed a glowing vortex above the surface. The temperature plummeted, and several members of the group dropped their equipment, too frightened to continue. Then, as suddenly as it began, the phenomenon stopped. The lights disappeared, and the forest fell silent once more. The after. Shaken, the group retreated to their vehicles, leaving much of their equipment behind. When they reviewed the footage later, they found strange anomalies. The lights appeared in shapes that seemed almost humanoid, and the audio captured faint, mournful cries. Mark, who had been scratched, developed a fever the following day. He claimed to see the lights in his dreams, always hovering just out of reach. Despite medical attention, his symptoms persisted for weeks, and he eventually moved far from Millfield, refusing to speak of the experience again. Sarah and David, too, were deeply affected. They agreed never to return to the forest, though the mystery of the lights lingered in their mind. Were the lights truly spirits, as local legends suggested? Or was there a more scientific explanation, perhaps tied to the magnetic anomalies and ancient stone formations in the area? A legacy of mystery. The events surrounding the forest lights remain a topic of debate and fascination. Paranormal enthusiasts flock to the area, drawn by the promise of encountering the inexplicable. Skeptics argue that the lights are merely natural phenomena, perhaps bioluminescent organisms, or atmospheric disturbance. But for those who have seen the lights up close, the experience is far too personal to dismiss. The sense of being watched, the whispers, the scratches all point to something beyond ordinary explanation. The forest remains a place of beauty and fear, its towering trees and hidden clearings holding secrets that may never be fully understood. Whether protectors, spirits, or something else entirely, the lights continue to appear, a reminder that some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved. And as Sarah herself often says, whatever they are, the lights aren't just stories, they're real, and they're watching.